Hey everybody, Bob Chick back with another edition of the Voice of Bodybuilding, brought to you by Mutant, powered by Panada, our good friends at ProFit, and of course, Celsius, keeping me hydrated and quenched throughout this season. Well, folks, this is it. Speaking of the season, we are starting things off very soon. The Arnold coming up. You saw me and Sean Ray previewing that just last week, and of course, next week is the week of the Arnold, so we'll be back with hopefully some updated information. Who's competing, who's not, who's in. You just never know. So, but the season is starting up, and I've gotten lots of questions about competing. What to compete in? What kind of a show should I pick? When should I compete? How do I go about it? What kind of a trainer should I use? Tons of questions coming in. Mostly this will pertain to our NPC audience that's out there, but of course, the pros can always take some information as well from my experiences. And we're going to get into that a little bit today. How do you schedule out the year? The question I've gotten most over the past month is, when do I know what show is right for me and how do I go about picking one? The one thing I can tell you for sure, and we're going to get into the ins and outs of all aspects of this in this episode, but people seem to have a hard time deciding on what actual show to go in. Now, usually it's by demographics, right? It's by some sort of an idea of this show's near me so I can drive to it, or I don't have to go out of my way or spend more money than I actually have in getting to a show, being that the NPC has shows in pretty much every corner of the earth you can think of these days. So one is going to be area. If it's a show in your area, perhaps there's a show that's been around for many years. It's got some prestige. In my area growing up, it was the Rochester Bodybuilding Championships, the New York State Championships. These were very prestigious shows that you wanted to win, because if you won those, it would be very likely you could go on to the Nationals, the USA, and have a reasonable good shot of placing high or even winning. So that's going to be number one on your list. Now, you've got to break it down into what type of a show is right for me. The first thing I can tell you is you have to just pick a show and stick with it. The sliding scale of what I've been seeing over the last 10 years or so, where people kind of tentatively pick a show, they'll kind of put it in pencil and say, well, I'm going to get ready for this show, the Mr. Main Street competition here, but if I'm not ready, I'll just go to this competition. Now, I can tell you firsthand, this is not something we had available to us back in the day, because quite frankly, there just wasn't that many shows. There might have been 2 or 3 shows in your area in the entire year. So you kind of targeted the show, and that was it. Now, it's nice that we have the availability of all these shows to everybody out there, but it also comes as a detriment, which you cannot absolutely do. You absolutely cannot just pencil in a show, see if you're ready, and if you're not, just simply go to the next one. This is not how it's done. And if a trainer is telling you this, I'm going to be the first one to sit here and tell you your trainer doesn't know what he's talking about, okay? You have to pick a definitive date, and you put that date in stone, all right? Do or die, I mean, barring anything catastrophic or injury or something that's going to completely prevent you from actually getting on that stage. That's it. Once you pick that date, that becomes the date that you are going to be on this stage, come hell or high water. That's what gave the urgency. There has to be a sense of urgency that you're going to compete, and you're going to do it in a timely fashion, because this idea that I'm seeing, that some of these preps are, I'll see posts online. Okay, I got a 40-week prep. That's not a prep. You don't prep for a half a year or a year. You're just too fat, okay? You just got to get in shape first to then prep. 12 to 14 weeks was always considered a basic prep from back in the day until now. Okay, if you need longer than 12 to 14 weeks, you're just simply not in good enough shape to even begin a prep. So don't call it a prep, because you're not really. You're just dieting down so you don't have 50 or 60 pounds of fat to lose, okay? 12 to 14 weeks for 99% of the people should be enough time to go from what I would consider regular bodybuilding off-season shape to contest condition, okay? It's also the amount of time that your body can withstand such a thing. Dieting for a competition is not a normal process, folks, okay? Doing cardio for up to an hour or 2 hours a day is not normal. It's very taxing on the body, the mind, the spirit. Financially, it's taxing on the wallet. Let's face it, we've all been down that road. It costs thousands of dollars to compete and get on stage, whether it's for a local show or a national show or, God forbid, a pro show, right? Which is even more. But you can't, if you can't do this in a reasonable time frame of three months or so. Again, everybody's a little bit different. We're going to give you a little bit of leeway there. Let's just say 12 to 16 weeks. That's it. Okay, so that's number two. First, pick a show that's in your area that works for you. It's conducive to where you live. And then pick a time frame. And like I said, it's do or die for that time frame, okay? There is no I'm not going to be ready. That means you got the wrong trainer. If he can't commit and you can't commit, it's a perfect mix, right? You have to be responsible as well. But if you have an opening, you're much more apt to not be following the diet as strict, not be putting all your eggs into that basket, because simply there's another show. If I'm not ready, I'll just go to the next show. Well, if I'm not ready for that one, I'll just go to the next. Next thing you know, you're 24, 30 weeks into, quote, prep. You're not going to look like anything on stage, okay? You've gone way beyond the bounds. And now you're going to get what we call, or what we used to call, diminishing returns. Your body is going to want to start to rebel. And trust me, I've been there. I just saw a video the other day that somebody put up online of the 89 Nationals. That was on ESPN at the time, because we used to actually get that kind of coverage, which was very cool. And I can't remember who was doing the commentary. It might have been like Corey Everson or Carla Dunlap or somebody, but they were making some comments on my posing routine when I was in there. Not the routine itself, but on my conditioning. And even then, I got to give them credit, because they called it dead on. They said I looked, like I was dead, like I had no energy, like the body had just kind of given up at that point. And they weren't wrong. Listen, I did respectable. I took fifth place, I believe, in that show, 89 Nationals. But long story short, it was my third national show of the year. I started with the USA. I took second place. Okay, I'm right there. I went to the North Americans. All right, got a shot at a pro card still. Keep in mind, you had to win the entire show back then, but that's a whole nother tale, which was in the middle of the year. So I kept the diet going. I kept in shape, and I got ready for the North Americans. And then at the end of the year, back then the Nationals was in November or so, I figured, well, I might as well just keep going, because I'm right there. I was in the top 5 of both national shows. Went to the Nationals, and I was burnt. Burnt out, I think, is actually the phrase that they used. And they couldn't have been more dead on. I was burnt out. My body wasn't responding anymore. I was burnt mentally and physically. It's just way too long. You cannot diet from the holidays until the USA through the year and then end up at the Nationals back in November, December. It's too much for the body, okay? And I learned that lesson quickly. And then after that, never did I did 3 national shows in a year. It was always 1 or 2. So that said, let's go through some of the PowerPoints that I have listed here of, I'm trying to give you guys as many tips as I can from my experience of what to do and what not to do as you're getting ready for shows, okay? First and foremost, I mean, we've already gone through the 2 main topics, okay? What is this idea of cheat days? Now, I'm not saying in the complexity of it, okay, because we actually instituted cheat days back in the 90s, I believe it was, okay? And it was a great solution to a problem that once you are dieting 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, right? You're getting closer to the show. Your body's becoming very accustomed to what you're eating. You're eating the same thing day in and day out with minor adjustments depending on what you're looking like, okay? Whether that's from you or your trainer or whatnot. So a perfect way to avoid your body getting used to this was to throw a wrench in the engine with a cheat day. Now, it started out as a cheat meal. Then, of course, that quickly blew up into a cheat day. But I'm seeing people that are starting out preps, and they've got a cheat day in there, or a cheat meal even, right? You haven't even earned the right for a cheat meal or a cheat day until you're probably a good 4 to 6 weeks in the prep. You don't start with cheat meals. Your body hasn't been accustomed to anything. You're still losing fat at this point, okay? The idea was to preserve as much muscle as humanly possible, all right, while just not shrinking away and melting as you got ready for the show. This was a very specific thing that was introduced, all right, that you could use to your advantage, but you don't start with it. I've seen some of these posts online that I just literally got to laugh out loud, because it's like, who told you this? If a trainer's giving you a cheat day or a cheat meal even, and you haven't been dieting 2 weeks yet, again, you got the wrong guy or girl for the job. You got to earn that. You got to get to a certain point where you felt as though you're plateauing and you need a little bit of something, right? That doesn't, you don't start off with that. That isn't the beginning of your program, I can assure you. Macros, the calorie is a calorie type of thing. People keep asking, why do the physiques look so much better in the 90s? Well, guess what, folks? There was no macro counting. There was no calorie as a calorie. That's got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Okay, we get the energy expenditure, the heat, burning, the calorie, that type of thing. We're not going to go into all the biology of it. But a calorie is not a calorie. That's like saying a car is a car. All right? Well, there's a big difference between a Ferrari and a Yugo. Okay? Yes, they're both cars technically. Okay? Music, right? Big difference between Frank Sinatra and 50 Cent. It's both music, though, right? Music is music. No, music isn't music. There's big differences in different kinds of music, different kinds of cars, different kinds of sports, different kinds of anything. A calorie is just not an instrument of energy expenditure, And how do you know this? Because people say, well, you just burn more calories than you take in. That might be good for general dieting considerations. You got 70 pounds to lose, or you're morbidly obese and you got to get this weight down because it's a health thing. This is not what we're talking about, folks. We're talking about getting ready for a competition. There's also something that people have completely forgotten about in their studies. And I remember this from biology in freshman year, right? Empty calories. Remember that? Empty calories, yes. X is worth X amount of calories, okay? Cheetos, okay? Yes, it has a calorie expenditure, but you can't tell me that those are the same calories that get used by the body, the same as, let's say, a piece of steak. Now, I know one's a protein, so, we're not going to get that, splitting of hairs here, okay? But you get what I'm saying, right? No, there's better and worse forms of calories. So you have to be very cognizant of what's coming in. We never really even counted calories when I was getting ready for shows. You were counting protein, you were counting carbohydrates, you were counting fats. But overall calories was really kind of irrelevant. It didn't make any difference, okay? If you were smooth and you needed to sharpen up, you reduced the amount of carbohydrates coming in. All right? If you needed a little bit, more, to fill you up and keep yourself going through the day and giving you some energy, you increased the protein consumption. Of course, especially as you're getting closer to the show and you're training harder on you've got reserve fuel that you're calling on at this point. And of course, fats, for the joints, to keep yourself healthy, your skin, your hair, all those things. Some fats coming in, of course, is of use. Some. Not the crazy stuff today. I see all these, again, crazy diets with these huge amounts of fats coming in. No, it's peanut butter. I need this for my diet. I need this. I need that. I need avocado. There's 100 things coming in for fats. If you're doing a keto diet, that's a whole different discussion, okay? Where you would literally substitute fats for carbohydrates. That's not what we're talking about here. You're never going to get ripped on a calorie that's that high in fats. You have to reduce them at some point, okay? And that varies, from person to person. But this idea of burning calories more than you're taking in is not going to get you in contest shape, folks. It's not that simple. Never has been and never will be. All right, so we talked about taking a show date, putting it into stone, all right? Do not deviate from this unless you absolutely have to. It is very important that you stick to the plan, all right? This works out well for people. I used to get people when I was a personal trainer many, many years ago, and they would have a date, let's say that they were going to get married or they had a high school reunion that they wanted to sharpen up for and look their best, that type of thing. These were dates in stone. They weren't moving. There was no, well, if we don't get married on this day, we're going to get married on this day. But it actually worked even better for the premise because there was a sense of urgency there. I got to get in shape by this day. That's it. That's the mindset that you need in order to achieve your best and stick to the plan. You just can't keep moving the goalposts just because you fell short. And that's what it meant. It meant that you fell short. If you had to pull out of a show for any other reason other than health concerns or something catastrophic, okay, that means you failed in some respect. Now, if you're working with a trainer and this trainer can't get you in shape or misses the mark, then you really got to consider getting yourself somebody else because clearly there is no reason on this earth any trainer, guru, trainer, prep coach, call them whatever you want, no way on earth that they can miss it by that much. Now, if you're going to use 100% as your excuse to get in or out of the show, I'm here to tell you it ain't going to happen. I competed for, 20-something years. I competed from 13, when my first show, until 40, okay? I don't think I ever hit 100%. I don't think most bodybuilders ever hit 100%. I think you get as close as you can. But the idea is to get yourself in contest shape and then put it on stage and see where you end up. That's why we have multiple shows. That's why there's multiple layers of shows. So you can keep working your way up the ladder and see how you compare to the other athletes, okay? So get yourself in the best condition possible. Go through all the stages, all the prep and all that stuff, and then get your ass on stage. Don't move the goalposts, okay? Be realistic, okay? And stop making up stuff. This is where social media has not helped us, okay? When you go into a show and you take third place and there's 3 people, I'm here to tell you that you took dead last, okay? Now, you can go on your little fan page there and all that stuff and brag about how you took top 3, but there's only 3 people in the show, all right? Glass half empty, half full. I get all that. Everybody wants to keep it positive, right? But don't go out there bragging like you won something. Oh, I was the title. Oh, I was the Masters champion at this show back 100 years ago. I won this. When you literally either competed against nobody was in the class, and I've seen that, or, again, there was only a handful. I took top 5. Yeah, I took 4th, and there was 4 people, okay? This is not helping you in your self-assessment or moving forward, okay? Just, telling people is one thing. Actually believing it tells me you're delusional, but let's try to keep things real, folks. Every time I see national qualified 6 times, that tells me you lost 6 times. This is not a badge of courage that you're wearing out there telling people I've been nationally qualified 6, 7, 8, I've seen up to 10 times nationally qualified, as if this is a good thing. Trust me, all right? From somebody who was there for 12 years, 13 years, it took me at the national level to get my pro card, and it wasn't for a lack of effort, okay? But I never use that as some sort of a badge of honor. Oh, it took me 13. No, that wasn't great. I could have turned pro. I was 1 point away from turning pro in my first year, okay? So stuff happens, right? I mean, again, that's ancient history, but, you get the idea, okay? Just because you're nationally qualified, there's 100 shows every month now. Good for business, good for the NPC, and good for you guys, because ultimately you have more choices than we had back in the day. But just because you're nationally qualified doesn't mean you are. And what I mean by that is it doesn't mean your physique. You might be qualified by the paper and pencil, okay? Technically you're qualified. But if you look in the mirror, or you've got access to the internet, this is something we had to wait for magazines to come out back in the day to see if you could hold your own against some of the guys that competed. We would go down and wait for the magazine of the Nationals or the USA, and literally you would scan down and see who you think you could possibly beat. And sometimes you get a whole way down. You get 20th, 20. I think I could beat this guy maybe, right? But you had something to compare yourself to. We see people all the time to this day that go to a national show. We've all been there, folks. Let's face it, right? And some guy comes out and you go, how did this guy qualify? How did he even qualify? And even more so, what made him think that he would come here to the USA or the Nationals and actually get on stage? Like when you went backstage, you didn't see that one of these things didn't belong here. Remember the old nursery rhyme back in, the Sesame Street days, right? You couldn't see that? You couldn't see that you don't belong there in this lineup. I mean, you got to have at least one friend out there who can be honest with you. Of course, this is the problem with social media in general, right? You got 5,000 of your closest friends. You got everybody blowing sunshine up your butt every day telling you how great you look and how great you are because of your filtered shots that you keep putting up, all right, that aren't even real. This is not what you're going to look like on stage. We've talked about this at the pro level before. Not helping yourselves, okay? Pros, even amongst the pros, okay? And they're worse because there's a smaller contingency. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of amateurs, okay? But as pro goes, listen, judges are people too. They see your Instagram. They see your stuff. That's the physique they're expecting. So when you keep filtering all these shots and putting these unrealistic pictures of yourself up there, morphed, all right, and sharpened, and all these tools that you got at your disposal now, that's great. But you better show up looking like that. If not, the last image they remember is you on your social media. They're waiting for this guy ripped to the bone to show up. And then you show up, and guess what? You ain't. They automatically think you're off. It's a human thing. It's not a politics thing or even a judge thing for that. It's a human thing. So, we talked about trainers a few times now. I've mentioned them, right? And to get rid of them if they're not doing the job. You got to vet these people. You got to do a little bit of homework, everybody. Don't just take it, listen, somebody who's competed once or twice, so all of a sudden becomes a guru, all right, or a coach that has almost no knowledge, or a life coach. That's a whole nother one. We'll save that for a whole nother episode. But I missed my calling. I should have been a life coach. I think that does like the easiest job in the world. But this is something that you got to look into. Don't just take their word. Don't just, because they spew out some nice little catchphrases and things like that, and Mr. Positive, and listen, do a little bit of homework. Go online. There are some advantages to being online these days, right? That you can see a whole lot of information, or even better, if you don't have somebody that this person has worked with personally, I'd be a little bit skeptical, okay? But again, do your homework, vet these people out, make sure that they are who they say they are, and they know what they say that they keep telling you, okay? And you're going to know real quick, but what you don't want to do is get taken for thousands of dollars. And some of the information that I see out there is startling, honestly, that this person will call themselves a coach when they couldn't even get themselves in shape. But, all right, I'm looking down my notes here. Cardio, all right, should never, ever exceed 2 hours a day. Now, I'm going to throw this out to the bikini girls, okay, because I hear this mostly with the bikini division and the competitors in it. 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours a day. I've heard some insane stories, okay? You're in the wrong sport, okay? This is called bodybuilding at any division, at any level. If you're a bikini competitor, you're a bodybuilder, okay? Not in the sense that you're a big, muscular guy walking around, right? It's various degrees of bodybuilding. It's exactly what we do. And every division's a little bit higher than the last, right? But even in bikini, you need some muscle out there. This isn't a beach competition, okay? You should not be on any type of cardio. 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night at max. At max. If you think you need more than that, then you got the wrong diet. This is a real simple one to figure out, okay? You got the wrong plan if you need more than 2 hours. This isn't a competition of who could do the most cardio. Again, you're in the wrong sport. If you got a coach that's recommending a third hour of cardio, or hour and a half, first of all, don't ever exceed 1 hour at one time, okay? That's the most you should ever do. After that, you get diminishing returns, gets into a whole different, physiology of why the body works like that, but in effect, you're going to be burning muscle. This is why long distance runners, think about it, marathon runners, don't look muscular like bodybuilders. They got that skinny fat look. Why? Because they're out there for hours running. They're calling on the body to produce energy to do this. Well, the body is very sparing. The body wants to save carbohydrates. At some point, it wants to save protein. And then it's gonna draw on the reserves, and those reserves are your muscle. So you're actually countering your own progress in the gym by doing excessive cardio, all right? And again, that's max. Max. You should be starting at maybe 30 minutes or that type of thing. Again, assuming that you're not 70 pounds overweight, okay? Get yourself in, quote, off-season shape first, then start your 12 to 14-week prep. Again, everybody's a little bit different with that. Start with 30 minutes, all right? Maybe every week or so you increase by increments of 5 minutes, that type of thing, until you get to an hour. Get the most that you can get out of what you're doing before you jump in. One mistake we did make years ago is, and I did this myself, all right, this is how dedicated we were. It was very admirable, but very stupid at the same time, because we didn't know any better. At 12 weeks out, I would start with 1 hour of cardio. Boom. And it was a lot. I mean, you talk about, we went from 0 to an hour right off the bat for 12 weeks. And then somewhere in there, you started the second hour session. So it would be an hour upon waking in the morning and an hour before I went to bed at night. Was it overkill? Absolutely. But again, you're talking about the 1980s here, okay? So, we had limited knowledge in this stuff. And that's when the cardio thing craze started to come in. Then we had to figure out how much was enough and how much was too much. And unfortunately, I mean, listen, the physiques were still outstanding, but I just think, how much better could we have been if we had this type of knowledge coming to us? So do not exceed 1 hour at a time and 2 sessions at any one given day, ever, okay? Do not train more as you get closer to the show. Another huge mistake I see from trainers. Now, we did this in excess of body parts. We used to train body parts twice a week. We now know that was probably a mistake. You should not train body parts more than, let's say, once every 5 days, and that's assuming you're on the younger side where you have recuperability. Okay, if you're in your 40s or 50s, absolutely not. You can't recover that quick. Okay, you're just beating yourself into the ground, and you're going to get diminishing returns and or injuries as you go. That's exactly what's going to happen. Trust me. A difference between me and you is I've been where you are, but you haven't been where I am. Okay, so I'm telling you from experience what's going to happen. Rest and recovery is huge to a bodybuilder, a competing bodybuilder. We're talking about competing on a stage here. Huge. We didn't know this back in the day. We thought you got big in the gym. As most people know by now, you don't get big in the gym. Nobody's ever gotten big in the gym. I'll sit here right now and tell you bold-faced, no one person on this earth has ever built anything in the gym. You break down muscle tissue in the gym, and you build it up in the recovery process. Again, something we didn't figure out until the 90s, okay? You're not building anything. You're breaking down muscle tissue through food and rest and supplements and recovery. That's how you're getting bigger. So it only stands to reason if you're not giving yourself ample amounts of rest and ample amounts of food, supplements, okay? There's a reason the stack of supplements is sitting here, folks, okay? No, it's not all snake oil that's out there and all these other stories that you hear. There's a lot of R&D that goes into this stuff. There's hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of research that goes into supplementation. And now it's been around for many, many years. This ain't the old days, all right, where supplements were still kind of an unknown, right? This stuff is very well researched, and there's a reason for it, okay? They can be valuable assets. I don't care how great the supplement is, though. The word supplement should tell you everything you need to know. Supplement, in addition to. I'm going to supplement my income by getting a second job, okay? You don't get rid of the first job. You get a second one to supplement the to add in, okay, a little bit. Food should be your number one source. Then you add in the supplements, whether it's more protein, you need a little pick-me-up before the gym, pre-workout type of thing, great. Vitamins, you need your aminos, that type of thing. Everything gets tailored, again, to your specific needs. That's why there's all the supplements that there are. But there's still, in addition to, food is always going to be number one. Got to get enough protein, got to get clean food. We've already talked about empty calories. That's not helping you at all. And eating smaller increments more throughout the day. I know there's various opinions on this type of thing, whether it actually adds to it or not. I don't care what anybody else says. Again, we've been there and done that, folks. Smaller increments, more throughout the day, is going to speed up your metabolism. Okay? We've all eaten Chinese food. Guess what? You're starving in a half hour. Why? Nothing sticks to the ribs. It's primarily clean food. Now, we're not talking about the fried General Tso's and all that. I like it too. But we're talking about clean food here. Chicken, rice, white rice, brown, whatever you like. Okay, we're talking about steak. We're talking about eggs. We're talking about all the basic food components that goes into anybody's diet. Okay? Keep it clean, and trust me, you'll be starving in a couple of hours, and your body metabolism starts to go up because it's expecting another meal. Give it that extra meal. Okay? It doesn't matter how late you eat. It depends on what you're eating late. If you ate pizza at 12 midnight or 12 in the afternoon, it's the same food content. It's going to do the exact same thing. And don't give me the stuff about your sleeping and it just sits in there. That's not how the body works. Your body does more activity at night when you're sleeping than anything else. You want to give yourself a good study in this. Weigh yourself before you go to bed and weigh yourself for the first thing in the morning. Now, you didn't do a damn thing all night. For 8 hours, you laid there dreaming about different things, right? Great. How did you lose 3-4 pounds? I had a 10-pound swing. I'll break out my notes in one of these. I'll actually pull them out. I got them somewhere in my archives of getting ready for the USA. I would have a 10-pound swing in weight from the time I went to bed to the time I woke up at night. Now, sweating like a dog because my metabolism was racing, all right? But still, where would 10 pounds go? That's how much fuel and energy your body needs to do all the repair that's necessary. When do you think your body does all the repair of all this muscle tissue that you beat up in the gym? At night. When you're at rest and sleeping, that's when your body is working the most. It's completely backwards from what everybody thinks. Okay, so you're going to compete at the NPC show. You picked out your show. You got all these little tidbits now and all that kind of stuff. You guys have got one advantage we didn't have back in the day, okay? There wasn't enough divisions to have crossovers. Most of these divisions didn't exist, okay? If there was a crossover, it was the older guys. They'd go in the open, they'd go in the masters. That's it. You got an ability to go to do crossovers now. All right, that means you can figure out where it is exactly that you belong. Okay, now this is great because there is a slight difference. Even though classic and open bodybuilding is bodybuilding, there is a difference in the look, and of course, classic has parameters that you have to be in, okay, in order to compete in the class, a height to weight ratio. Now that's being implemented in men's physique also, but men's physique, classic, men's bodybuilding, 212, okay, it's all forms of bodybuilding, but you got to figure out where you look best. Not everybody is a classic physique, okay, and just because you want to point in your posing, okay, somewhere doesn't make you a classic looking competitor. That's just a classic pose that you're doing. So go on all the shows that you can go in terms of when you get there. Listen, you've already spent a shitload of money. All right. You've already put the time and the effort and the energy into competing. So get yourself in 2 or 3 or 4 divisions. Again, it depends on what your pocketbook can afford, of course, but it's a great opportunity to figure out where you're going to look best and where you match up the best. So this is a huge consideration that again, we didn't have back in the day. So take advantage of this stuff. All right. So let's move it along here. Do not train body parts more. Okay? I have never in all my years of training seen anybody bring up a lagging body part by training it more often. Again, we just went through the reasons why. All you're doing is breaking it down more. You're not building it up more. Okay? I know it sounds weird, but if you want to build you got calves or you got legs or something that's not responding, don't train it more. Train it less actually, but train it more intensely and bump the repetitions up. Bump up the reps. Okay? Your instinct is going to be to want to train heavier, right? Because if you go heavier, you're going to build it more. That's not necessarily how it works. You got to figure out what your body responds to. My body didn't respond to extremely heavy weight. Okay, it responded more to repetition. And I could rep like a champ. And that's what my body grew on. Okay, you can pretty much find your way there. How do I know which way I am? You can pretty much figure that out as you're training because people that aren't naturally strong will tend to not train that heavy because you're not that strong, right? It's just common sense. So train stubborn body parts lighter and a little bit more repetitions. Again, nothing crazy. Again, not a marathon. You're not doing 30, 40 reps here. I'm talking, 15 reps, that type of thing. You got to pump and volumize that area, whether it's your arms, your legs, or anything else. Trust me, you're going to bring up a lagging body part by training it once a week, training it more intensely, and training it with higher repetitions. Doesn't sound like it's going to work. If anybody out there wants to try it, please, I implore you, put this in motion for the next 6 months. Get back with me right on here in those comments, folks. And I appreciate the comments. I always get back with you on those. I've had some guys that have gotten back, and they've been trying a lot of the techniques I've been telling them. Their elbows are feeling better. They're not bench pressing anymore. Going to put that pec tear into action that we always hear about. So, okay. And finally, we're going to wrap this up by saying this. Get out of fantasy land. Okay? Now, I don't want to get off on a rant here, but social media has made superstars out of everybody. This is the problem these days, is everybody's got a platform. Everybody's got millions of followers, friends. They think they're influencers. Trust me, you're not. Unless your name's Kardashian or something like that, okay? You're not influencing nothing. But get out of fantasy land, okay? Stop using titles that you haven't earned. How many times have I seen this? And I'm even talking at the pro level, folks. Anybody who's heard my rhetoric knows I'm a stickler when it comes to titles and people using them and didn't earn them. And this goes all the way to the top. We still have people using the name Mr. Olympia, okay, that were not in the Mr. Olympia. Chris Bumstead is not Mr. Olympia, okay? Ryan Terry is not Mr. Olympia. Keon Pearson is not Mr. Olympia. Derek Lunsford is Mr. Olympia. That's the Mr. Olympia. No other title in there has a Mr. attached to it. And this goes for the women too, okay? The only Miss Olympia I know is Andrea Shaw, one of Mutant Zone, by the way. She's the current and reigning champ with the title of Miss Olympia. If you won the Bikini Olympia, if you're Jennifer Dory, if you're any of these other girls, if you're Sarah Villegas, okay, none of them are Miss Olympia, okay? They have specific titles for a reason. There's only 2 people that have those titles, and that's the Miss and the Mr. And unless you're in those categories, those divisions, please do not call yourself, if you won men's physique 100 times, you're not Mr. Olympia. Stop with that. You did not earn the title, and quite frankly, it's insulting to those who did win the title. And I say this not only at the pro level, but I've seen it at the NPC level. These aren't titles that you've earned. If you beat nobody on stage, Okay? If you're the only one in your class, yeah, I know technically you won, right? But don't throw that title around like you're somebody because you beat nobody. Okay? You just don't invent titles. Okay? This is not good for anything except your own ego or throwing stuff out there. So, I know it's a small thing, but if you're old school like me, this is something that's important, all right? Lead by example, not quotes and memes. Okay? I've seen people out there, and I see them to this day. They say one thing, but they don't ever follow up on it. They don't ever achieve it. They don't ever do it. They just keep throwing out these great quotes from all these people, these famous people and stuff. Don't give up. Don't do this. Don't keep going. All this, and that sounds great. Except they gave up a long time ago. They never made it to the show. They never got their butt on stage. Right? They keep putting these things out there, but they never actually do it. All right? Lead by example. If you really want to set an example to anybody, be it the younger generation, other people, your own fan base, whoever, do it. Get it done. Actually, get yourself through the process. Get yourself on stage, and whatever happens, happens. Whether you take last or whether you take first, at least you can say, I walk the walk. All right? But if all you ever do is flap your gums and put stuff out there to all these other people, this is what you should do. You can't lead by example, okay? I'm going to leave you with this, folks. It's okay to dream big, all right? You just can't brag about it. Actually doing it is called reality. And that's going to wrap things up for another Voice of Bodybuilding. I'm Bob Chick. See everybody next week.